So let's talk about the politics of the Olympics. Jules Boykoff is the author of Power Games, A Political History of the Olympics, and he joins us live from Rio de Janeiro. Good to have you with us, Jules. So you're right there. You've obviously seen some of the protests that are going on, and this is a common complaint about the Olympics, isn't it? The huge cost of the Games versus the benefits it could bring, and that is one of the big political arguments that always rages about the Olympics.
That's true. There was a recent poll here in Rio that found that nearly 2 in 3 people thought that the Olympics would bring more harm than good. And recent Olympics have also experienced protests. Last night, I attended protests here in Rio that are under the banner of Jogos da Exclusão, which means exclusion games. They've been holding protests all week. Tomorrow, on the opening day, we're going to see at least 2 large mobilizations here in Rio de Janeiro, and so we'll have that to look forward to as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I was looking into the Olympic Games ahead of this interview, and in many ways, Olympics are seen as a positive thing in terms of urban renewal, a boost to the economy, a boost to tourism. But as you've pointed out, it's also used as an excuse to raise neighbourhoods that the government doesn't want around anymore, and to forcibly relocate large populations of people. I mean, in the end, it's all about corporate control.
Well, that's right. It raises the question, for whom do the Olympics boom? And it does help corporations. It helps the corporate sponsors. They tend to see an uptick in their money making. We see well-connected elites here in Rio who are doing really well from the Olympics. But everyday people, not so much. In fact, everyday people tend to suffer from the Olympics. And there's been a number of removals. About 77,000 people have been removed from their homes. And almost everybody that you talk to here in Rio is raising that question about how can we be spending these billions on the Olympics when we have real needs in society, when hospitals are being shuttered, when social services are being dialed back.
In the wider picture, I mean, over the years, we've seen the Games being associated with, good things like equality and human rights, but also way back in the past, it's been accused of supporting fascism and Nazism. How far is political activism a sort of marker of the Games?
Well, I think we've seen activism going way, way back when it goes to the Olympics. Back in 1932 in Los Angeles, protesters said groceries, not games. We saw them around the 1936 Olympics, incredibly controversial with Hitler's games as they came to be known. And because the Olympics in the modern era are so big, they roll over the toes of many activists who are already working on issues in the Olympic city. And so the gigantism of the Games, as Olympic mavens like to refer to it, is a sort of burr in the side of activists who it really activates when the Olympics come to town. And I think it's important to note also that it's really easy to wag a finger at Rio de Janeiro, but I think we should have some caution in doing so. Don't get me wrong, the organizers here have shown seismic incompetence and some pretty flabbergasting arrogance along the road here. But the problems that we're seeing in Rio are really more widely Olympic problems. They're problems that we've seen in previous cities, whether there's Sochi in Russia, London, whether it's Vancouver or Beijing. Similar problems tend to play out over time that activate activist communities in these various cities.
So as far as Rio goes, if you could look into your crystal ball, I mean, what positives will come out of having the Olympics in Rio?
Well, prediction is, of course, tricky business. I think on the positive side, we're going to see the most amazing athletes descend on Rio. And we are also going to see activist communities taking to the streets. We've seen peaceful demonstrations. We've seen nonviolent response on the part of the police that are there. And I think that bodes well for the future. We can hope to see that. You were mentioning before the possibility of having this whole thing strengthen democracy in Brazil. The real test will, I think, come with the protests and how the protests are experienced by the police. Let's not remember, it was only a few years ago that there were widespread protests across the country that were massively repressed. And let's hope that does not happen again here with the Olympics.
Jules, pleasure to speak with you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Jules Boykoff there in Rio de Janeiro.